Okay, Mr. Matrix, as you can hear and sense, I have a spring in my step. This is the last of our previews. Melbourne Storm, which means, what does it mean? It means we are closer to the kickoff of the NRL season. Cannot wait for Sunday to come, 11 a.m, first game next weekend, and that means we are back into the NRL season in earnest.
Absolutely looking forward to it.
Cannot wait. So, as we've described previously, we've gone through our top forecasts in our previews, but the Storm sit aside. They sit with their lonesome review because we think they are going to be top of the table at the end of the year. Are they going to win the comp? We'll get to that, but we think that they will be minor premiers. So they get their own review. Let's get into it. Let's just start with the coaching staff and the setup. Craig Bellamy, what's this? His 22nd, 23rd year at the helm, I think. That's
something
just
like that.
That is crazy. No one's done it. Well, I don't know what Wayne had best part of 20 at the Broncos or something, didn't he?
To last at one club past 5 years is an achievement. To do it well over 20 years, heading toward 25 years is just staggering. But then wrap around that, the consistent success that they've had. They're consistently in the top four, if not the top two, consistently in the top two for defence, and rotate and develop their list better than anybody in the competition.
Yeah, they've got a great setup down there. Privately owned, have been for some time since News Corp moved on. Very, very well-run club, great culture, great setup. I think the partnership of obviously Craig and Frank Panisi is second to none in the game. I think it's probably fair to say that has been, that might be the best partnership in NRL Rugby League history. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a long-term standout for well over 20 odd years. So you think those couple of years that Frank had working with me at Norths probably helped take him to higher levels?
I think what it did is it showed him the way of doing things way better than you, Mr. Matrix. That's what it did. He went down and spent some time with Bozo at Manly in the Manly system. Actually, you know where he went from there? He went to coach with. This is a bit of a history lesson. Actually, we did a podcast with him back in the day when we started the podcast, Frank. It was very interesting. But he went from the Bears to France, and he coached in the second division with Scott Wisemantle, who's on the Parramatta staff. That's how they met. So we're going back far out. We're going back a long time. Then he came back to the Northern Beaches and worked under Bozo.
Well, he was originally a Manly junior and actually I think played lower grades for Manly and then had a couple of years with us on the coaching staff at Norths, then went to France, as you suggest. Bozo had always had a close relationship with him and then brought him back to Manly. And he then was Bozo's assistant with the Australian team for many years, I think 4 or 5 years. Did a couple of kangaroo tours when they used to be the traditional kangaroo tours to England. He ran all the skill, oversaw all the fitness, and was almost the de facto team manager as well. And then things went from there. Yeah, he's outstanding.
And would not meet a nicer bloke.
No, outstanding.
Actually, just on that, it's been very remiss of me. I should put a bit of a shout out for a couple of NRL teams. The Ball and All podcast, as you know, Mr. Matrix, it started out just at the start of COVID, so it's a fair while ago. When we wanted to bring awareness to men's mental health, and we've got a 5-year anniversary of a young fella in our area who was very dear to our hearts, who passed away. Best part of it was 5 years ago. This weekend with Lennox Ballina Board Riders. So it's a memorial event, and we want to continue to raise awareness in his memory. And as well, try and raise some funding so we can put it into initiatives around the community to continue to raise awareness for men's mental health. And we reached out to the Sharks with Fitzy, Melbourne Storm with Frank, who's always been, forthcoming. Obviously, Wisey at the Eels, and we have some unbelievable prizes that have been sent up of all sorts of signed stuff from those three clubs for next weekend's live auction and raffles and all sorts of stuff. So. We don't hear this sort of stuff enough. I think about NRL clubs, it doesn't get publicised. But I can tell you, those three clubs, if you pick, if previously with the Lismore floods and whatever, if we pick the phone up, they can't do enough. So thank you, the Storm. Thank you, the Eels. Thank you, the Sharks. Top shelf. And we've got the gear here ready for next weekend. So,
yeah, 100%. Anyway. 12 months ago, a good friend of mine who lives in Newcastle, his, I think, brother-in-law was diagnosed with life-threatening cancer, and they did a fundraiser, and he was an absolute avid Knights supporter, and my mate reached out to me, I reached out to the Knights. Within a couple of days, we had a jersey signed by the full first-grade squad and a range of other memorabilia and tickets and God knows what donated, and every club does this. I've seen the Broncos and the Titans do this many times, and every other club. They're absolutely outstanding. Some of the stuff that Phil Gould and the Bulldogs do behind the scenes for Parcel on Clothing in the Sydney market, the clubs are just outstanding in this regard.
And it's a good segue into the media ramping up this week with the NRL coming back with all our little Fox, Fox and bloody Daily Telegraph cronies. Buzz and all your boys out there, just keep writing positive stuff. Let's stay out of the gutter, because these are good stories and they do so much in their communities. And again, we're seeing that, so it's fantastic. But we're here to get into the Storm.
Unfortunately, what we need the public to be doing is clicking on the good stories and the general news, and not over-clicking on the trash and the sensationalist or the negative stories. And, I remember, Benny Eichen, who I know very well, Benny telling me a couple of years ago that at NRL 360, they actually track every minute of their show, not just 15-minute segments, but they actually track the ratings and the viewers for every minute.
So Buzz had rated, he would rate the worst.
So whenever they talked about a negative story, or, a player has done the wrong thing, their ratings went through the roof. If they talked about the positive, or they talked about game tactics or all that sort of stuff, their ratings went down. It's an unfortunate reflection of, I guess, some of the media that we have. And one of the things I think that the NFL and the AFL do very well is they have standalone shows that talk about game plans and coaching and structure and highlight all that sort of stuff that have really strong followings. Unfortunately, we don't have enough of that in NRL. But anyway, we digress. We're talking about the Storm.
Their list, Mr. Matrix. Stefano has moved down from the Tigers. Yep. It's the only change. Christian Welch. Hats off to Christian Welch. Firstly, medically retired after numerous concussion issues, including one a couple of weeks ago in training, which was sort of the one that sort of sent him over the edge. Really, really good career, I think, and definitely got maximum output from his talent pool. Remus Smith.
Just on Christian Welch, he's an ornament to the game. He went through Villanova, where my son Ben went through. 2 days after Christian... Playing rugby. And 2 days after...
Did he play league? Did he play league on Sundays or
I think he did. But 2 days after he retired last week, he was back at Villanova and did a talk to the school, spent a full day in and out of different classrooms and sports groups and photos, and he's just a wonderful leader, great fella.
He's switched on. He's very smart. So no doubt he has a very good future ahead of him.
He's on
whatever
the
he chooses
for the Players Association, and yes, he will. He's got executive material written all over him.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd be the sort. Well, he spent a lot of time down in Melbourne, but I could see him with his smarts as somebody that could eventually run that organisation. Yeah, if that's what he chose to do.
Well, he's got multiple degrees. He's very well educated. He's a very smart fella.
Yeah. So Christian Welch, hats off to you. He's retiring, medically retired. Remus Smith has moved on. Chris Lewis has moved on, and Tunapaya has moved on. So a lot of, again, with their, there's one thing that comes out when you look at these really successful clubs, isn't it? The stability in their rosters. Whether it be the Panthers, obviously the Storm we're talking about now, recent times the Sharks, the Broncos.
Well, and the key thing is bringing through the next generation so that you've got a smooth transition. Remus Smith, it could be argued, did he have one more year? Maybe he might have. Same with Chris Lewis. They could have probably gone to another club. They were happy to say, my time and my career has been at this club and retire. And then coming through, you got, Jack Houth, who they've brought through and developed into a 5-star first grader. Nick Meaney, he's now probably, year 3, year 4, playing first grade. They've got these other guys playing in the back row, Blore that they brought down from Tigers, Katoa that they identified and brought across from the Warriors, Trent Lalero playing at 13. He's now into his 2nd or 3rd year of really cementing his role in first grade and becoming a standout player. Alex McDonald off the bench. I mean, Tyrone Wishart, what a good story is he? He came through the Dragons. They let him go. The guy will go on the open market later this year and there'll be clubs throwing enormous coin at him. Yet he's developed his career down there. Young Garlic that came down from the Souths and Roosters system. They're very good at identifying and bringing those guys through. Warbrick that they brought across from rugby. You look at that list, Stephen. They made the grand final last year. They just ooze depth. And if I look at comparing list and marking them up on the back of that, adding that big front rower was the key missing piece. I then compare it to the other teams around them that I think have gone back a couple of pegs. I think the Roosters, as we've already touched on in previous podcasts, have all of a sudden had 6 or 7 guys that they lose, which is really going to impact the quality of what they put on the park every week. The Panthers, key question mark. They lose a very good front rower. They lose a very good 5'8". Both are internationals. I have to mark them down. I mark the Storm up. There's a big gap between who I have at the top of the table and then the gap behind them. So, yes, the list is just a standout. Then it's the depth, though, Steve. They've got the best spine in the competition, but should the 9, the 7, the 6 or the 1 end up injured, they've got guys like Wishart, Fa'alongo, Perrott, and Garlic, who can all step in and play 9 or 7 or 6 or 1. Any other club would, give a right arm for that level of quality of depth that can step in for them. And then their draw, my goodness, their draw.
Well, before we get onto their draw, again, you touch on the way they recruit, the type of player they recruit. Stefano's gone down there from the Tigers. The year before, they had a couple of cracks. Finally, they got their man in Sean Blore, outstanding last year on the edge. 1 year in, he showed some talent at the Tigers, but not the sort of consistent week in, week out footy that he played last year. For me, I think Stefano is that big a get that I think he will play. He'll be one of the standouts if he remains uninjured in Origin.
Yeah,
I really do. I think.
The biggest thing, the biggest challenge, and if there's no better club than being able to make this work, but the biggest challenge for Stefano and his wife is that they've got young kids, is moving to Melbourne, moving away from their family and their friends and all that sort of thing, and then settling in and playing good football. And hopefully that's the case. The guy is a real talent. We started to see that when he came through the ranks at the Eels, and then the Tigers signed him. It was a great signing. Unfortunately, they've not been able to retain him.
So he's originally a Parramatta Junior, is he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, right, okay.
Scotty Woodward identified him.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Well, when you get onto the draws, Mr. Matrix, it doesn't come any better than this for them, the way it's lined up this year. It's probably the best draw in the comp, don't you think?
Yeah, it is, by far. Firstly, I have them already rated as my top team. Then flavour into that the fact that they play, 11 real home games. We know how much advantage they have playing out of Melbourne. They'll probably only lose 2 games at home.
Starting out week 1 down in Melbourne against the Eels. Okay, if we talk real home advantage, again, is this at the top of your sort of points, real home advantage, like 5.5?
Yeah, 5.5 to 6. Yep,
okay,
absolutely.
so there is the answer in the real home advantage. This is probably the best real home advantage in the NRL. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, righto. I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. That's good. Righto.
It's only taken me 2 years.
Fucking hell. Real home advantage. 5.5. Okay, so it's 5.5 nil every time they have a home game down there, and they've got 11. They've only got one distant travel turnaround, and not a lot of Origin players, I don't think, are going to come into contention here.
Well, the key thing is they only have one game where they play without their Origin reps. They'll have a lot of Origin reps, but it only impacts them once. So the draws.
That's what I mean.
The draws fall beautifully for them. Then, they play last year's bottom 9 12 times. They only play 6 games against last year's top 4. Against my top-rated opponents, clearly they're one of them. They only play one team twice.
Yeah.
And then, yes, they travel from Melbourne. People say, well, don't you count that into distant travel? They've been the most professional travel team for the last 10 years. Bellamy is by far equal to, in my opinion, Warren Ryan, and I think Ivan Cleary's up there in the conversation these days as the best defensive coach. He can coach structure and defence like nobody I've seen in the game, and consistently do it with a change of list like nobody in the game. And so they consistently defend in the top 2, averaging anywhere between 16 to 17 to 18 points a game. And that gets you into the top 4. They then 9 times out of 10 get you a home semi-final. Going down to Melbourne to beat them in a home semi-final is incredibly difficult. Then they get a week off. Then they play a final at home. It's just a recipe to consistently getting yourself into the grand final.
So just on the defensive numbers, so is it fair to say if you're conceding less than 20 a game average, you're top 4?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we look at last year, and let's remember in this same conversation, the last 2 years, the defensive numbers per game average has gone up a couple of points because we've got a quicker game, we've got these 6 again restarts and all this other bullshit.
Yeah, because it was sort of more like 12, wasn't it?
No, it was closer to probably 15 or 16.
Okay.
And then it sort of crept up a little bit. If we go back 3 or 4 years ago, the average was about 18. If you were the best of the best, you were somewhere around 17 to 18. Well, last year, number 1 was the Panthers at 16.4. So even with all of those changes in the game...
That's astounding.
Absolutely it is. The Storm were 4th at 18.7. Second and third were the Sharks and the Bulldogs at 18. So if you're under that 20 mark that you suggested... the Roosters were 19.3, right? So those top 5 sides were under 20. They were all at the pointy end of the table. We go to the ones at the bottom of the table. We've talked about the Tigers before. 31 points a week, leaking. But the year before it was 28. The year before it was 28. If you don't get that right, you don't climb the table. I don't care how many marquee signings you make. And that's the thing about the Panthers and the Storm, that they consistently do this. And so they will be, even with the changes that are going on at Penrith, they will still have one of the best defensive offerings in the competition.
Okay, just on that, I think this is a really interesting point. If we look at what we think collectively, where we agree, we don't agree on a lot, but if we think our top 4, which we'll do in our wrap, but let's just get ahead of it slightly, is going to be Storm, Panthers, Sharks, Broncos.
Yep.
Do we agree with that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All four coaches, standout defensive coaches.
Wonderful.
Madge, Fitzy, he coached defence at the Roosters. He's taken everything that he's learnt over the years to the Sharks and doing an extremely good job. There's no point even talking about Mr. Cleary. He's just been unbelievable. And then we don't have to talk about Mr. Bellamy. There you go.
That's right.
CEOs, that's what you want to recruit. Defensive mind coaches.
Well, the 3 years that Fitzy's been at the Sharks, all of a sudden he's got them back to year 1 leaking only 15 points. Year 2, 20. Last year, 18.
Yeah, okay.
And
all 3 seasons top 4.
Second, 6th, 4th. Yeah, they're all in the top 6. You know, the makeover that Cirillo's done at the Bulldogs. I mean, in his first year, they leaked 32 points a week.
Now, keep in mind, we were very critical early on, but we turned the Titanic around pretty quickly as well. We're a wrap on Mr. Serraldo for all you Bulldog fans out there that pepper me. We are a wrap on what's happening there. Second year,
Absolutely.
what was it? So 31, second year?
18.
Yeah.
He improved them into the top 3 in the competition in defence, and look where they finished. You know, they finished in the top 6, and you can see that there's the foundations now for them to continue to improve their list. And
definitely.
Everybody talks about you need the marquee signings. Getting the marquee signings is only half the issue. It's actually having the foundations of defence to add those marquee players to that then get you winning games.
100%. So let's wrap up what we think on the Storm. Number 1, stability in their roster. Number 2, the best, the most favourable, the softest draw in the NRL.
Correct.
And number 3, one of the standout coaches in the last 25 years. And the best home ground advantage.
Yep. And so then if I massage all of those things into a rating number, which I do, so, you know, I use that rating number on a week-to-week basis, but I also then look at a season-long forecast. And, you know, I've shared this with you in the past. You know, a very good mate of mine who does a lot of this work with me has built a piece of software that simulates every game of the season. So we run all 27 weeks of the season based on our rating numbers and those results, just to double check where we think our ratings and numbers might be. You know, I've got the Storm about a 5% gap to the second side.
5% higher to number 2.
I've never started a season in the last 14 years that I've been doing this with that bigger gap.
What's the usual?
2, maybe 1.5.
So the biggest gap prior to this year has been 2%.
Yep.
Right. Jesus. Okay.
And then if I run that simulation, I've got them winning the minor premiership by 3 or 4 games. Gap. That's 8 points. Last year, they had 19 wins. I think there'll be 20, 21, 22 wins this season.
Yeah, right. Jesus, okay.
And
look, most of that, so from the 2% to the 5, 2 wins to 3 wins, clear, as far as predictions go, is based off the draw, really, isn't it?
Oh, but it's also... It's a combination of, firstly, them strengthening their list and a couple of others going back a notch or 2. Then it's a matter of, you know, their draw. You know, all of that flavoured in together. You know, you compare that draw to what the Roosters have or the Rabbitohs have. Forget the player changes. Just look at the draw. You know, that's where the gap even widens further. And so... You know, I've got them at the top. You know, the over-under wins for the market forecast is 17.5 wins. They won 19 last year. How are they not going to win 18 or more this year? I mean, the market's been incredibly conservative. I mean, I've shared with you previously, I started backing them last November for the minor premiership and the title, and I've been backing them consistently since. And thanks to a couple of close friends who have helped me get money on elsewhere around the marketplace, they were $4 for the minor premiership. They were just on $4 to win the competition.
Really?
They're now $3.20 for the minor premiership. They're $3.40 for the premiership title, right? If I turn my number into a price to win the competition, the market has them $3.40. My price is $2.60.
To win the comp.
To win the comp.
Yeah, okay. That's let's just have a quick look here. Yeah, right. So okay,
now,
so top eight finish, they're paying $1.08. My God, that's short, isn't it?
It should be $1.01.
Yeah. So they're not going to miss the 8. Minor premiership paying $3.60. Yeah.
Well, that was $4. It's still $3.60 in some places. I can't believe it. That's the best angle. If you're listening to this podcast and you just want to have a bet and you're prepared to put some money aside and roll for a longer term option, back them for the minor premiership. Winning the premiership, as we know, is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, they might finish first, but then they've got to get through three tough wins to come up with the title.
Yes, they're paying $2.25 to make the grand final, but they're paying $3.60 to win the minor premiership.
Yeah.
Mm.
Steve,
why is that lower? That's a bit confusing. Minor premiership $3.60, make the grand final $2.25.
Because they could win the minor premiership, but they've still got to win another 2 games to get to the grand final. So
but it's lower. It's lower.
What do you mean?
To make grand final, $2.25.
Yeah, because they've still at $3.60. They haven't yet played those 2 semi-finals. Then they've got to win those 2, and so it's a lower number.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
You know that red glowing phone you have on your desk.
Yeah, it's
when you pick up the bat phone and it goes straight to your bank manager.
It is the bat phone, yes, but I don't have a bank manager because I don't have any money.
Saying, I need to shovel some more on the Melbourne Storm for the minor premiership.
Geez, you're confident, Mr. Matrix. You are. This is the most confident I've... Actually, it's probably in line with your confidence in saying this. You were shitting yourself at that last round. Your confidence of the Tigers winning the wooden spoon last year.
Correct.
Okay. Righto.
And if I also put it into some balance, the year, I can't remember it, but it was about 6 or 7 years ago when the Storm beat the Cowboys in the grand final by 30-odd points and absolutely lapped them, right? About 8 weeks into that season, because of everything that was happening around them, I ended up with the Storm about 5% higher in rating than anybody else in the competition. But that was 6 or 7 weeks into the season. And then I started troweling money on the Storm for the rest of the year.
Troweling money on. Oh, my God. Final. Fuck, you've got all the one-liners, Zorba.
And they did. They won by 30 points. But it took till week 6 or 7 or 8 for things to unfold around them and them to get stronger and become the very obvious strong-rated side at the top of the table. I'm suggesting this year is the rare one where going into the season before a ball is kicked, I've already got them 5% above the rest of the field.
Okay. Righto. What... if you lost Harry Grant, if you lost Jerome Hughes, maybe less so because they've learned to live without Pappy, but if you lost one of those 3.
Yeah, but then they got Wishart, Garlick, Failongo and Perrott.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to shoot holes through your argument.
Those blokes would walk in and play first grade starting at every other club in the competition.
Correct.
The depth is outstanding, and then they got a draw that it's just an enormous benefit.
Yep. Well, let's have a look at them this afternoon because they've got their strongest side on the field. Just in line with that, if you have a look at these player ratings that I know the journos love to put together at the start of the season, your top 50, top 100. Just one question for you: is Harry Grant number 1 player in the game?
No.
He's in the top 10.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
In your opinion, we'll finish this preview of the Storm on this note. But who's your number 1 player of influence, I suppose, over the game?
It has to be Cleary.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
Look what he did at the end of last year.
5 grand finals, 4 wins, and the way he's held himself in those grand finals and his contribution, second to none.
All you got to do is go back and roll the last 18 minutes of the grand final 2 years ago. He completely changed. They came from 3 tries down to win a grand final with 18 minutes to go. It's a very special player that can create that leadership.
Yeah, so he's number 1.
He's number 1.
Righto, we will. We've got one more. Well, it's sort of not really a preview. It'll be one more summary of our longer term views, bets, whatever you want to call them, for the season to come. Stay tuned. Get online to NRL, Reading the Play NRL tipping comp, $40 entry, and you will be stacking up the cash at the end of the year if you're a good enough tipster, because we have 3 comps in one. Every cent that is entered goes back to the people that support our NRL community, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
So if we've got
and also with a weekly podcast.
And if we've got 200 entries, Steve, that's 8,000 that's going to get paid out.
8,000 cash.
What if you're the survivor? You could walk away with $2,000.
Well, you know the big thing about the Survivor, I love these comps, the Survivors, and we wanted to run ones in previous years, but we weren't able to do it because we didn't have the website set up. But we have the website set up now. They are the best competitions. They, as you have noted with the stats, you get so many upsets in the first 6 to 8 weeks. We'll have someone walking away with probably $2,000 cash after 4, 6, 8 weeks.
Yep. So we'll be back. One last podcast. We'll have a look at our forecasts into the season, our top 8, our top 4, win the comp. I think that one's pretty obvious. Who we think's on the slide, who might be down the bottom of the table, and maybe a few plays for those that want to for the longer term. And, Stephen, it wouldn't be like us to have an opinion, so we'll come back and see if we can do that as well.
Giddy up. Can't wait.